I hope that tonight is really a blessing. You know, it's easy to talk about something that you're passionate about. And I know that my daughters, all four of them, are obviously very special to me. And I remember, you know, when my daughters were born, the doctor kind of handed the baby, you know, over to me. At that point, this was my first child. And you always think you're going to break her, you know. And he hands her to me, and I'm thinking, you know, how do you hold this baby, you know? And the neck is just kind of, you know, moving around, and, you know, she can't hold it up and stuff like that. But you feel like a natural sense of protection over your daughters, don't you? You know, like, this child was given to me, and I need to protect this girl, you know, through life. And as I was getting ready for tonight, I kind of thought, you know, what happens from the time that that little baby is handed over to me to the time that she has to go through the world. And as I was preparing, I looked at a lot of statistics about teenage girls, and some of them I found were really surprising. For instance, 40% of 9 to 10-year-old girls have felt they needed to lose weight, you know, tried to lose weight. About 5 million women struggle with eating disorders. About 30% of teenage girls will get pregnant during their teen years. About 15% of 15-year-olds have experienced major depression. 71% of teen girls report that they are unhappy with who they are. 20% of girls in college are bullied. Girls with low self-esteem are 3 times more likely to engage in sexual activity. 30% of girls have considered killing themselves. 25% of girls have had alcohol at age 14. And 7% of girls have used illegal drugs this past month. That's really scary. You know, because I'm thinking, that daughter that was handed me in the hospital, I don't want her to go through that. All of those are scary statistics, but it's the world in which we are raising our daughters. So we have to somehow get ready to raise the girls to be contrary to what our culture and our society tells them that they are supposed to become like. Because unfortunately, even if you watch TV, the news, magazines, all that is telling the girls that you will go through this. This is just life. It's just what you do. But as godly men, that's not where we want our daughters to go. Instead, we want them to go a different route, God's route. You know, a while ago, I kind of came up with a saying that I've used as my personal motivation when raising the daughters. The saying goes, I'd rather shoot for the stars and miss than shoot for the roof and hit it. Basically, what are your expectations for your daughter? Are you shooting for the stars for her? That she's going to go through life not experiencing these struggles and the difficulties? Or are you shooting for the roof, just saying, I hope she makes it not addicted to drugs? What are your expectations for your daughters? You know, for me, I'm raising star-shooting daughters. You know, I want them to face the world, and the world to be amazed at their dedication to the Lord, at their ability to be strong and stand up to the things in this world. You know, I want them to basically be completely free of all of these problems that I mentioned. But if we're going to do that, then there's certain things that we need to do as dads that to play a role in directing them along the path that they need to go, so that they can shoot for the stars and that they can live a life contrary to what this world is telling them that they have to live like. And there's 3 things that I kind of felt that I want to talk about tonight in order for us to achieve this. The first one is being their standard. You know, there's always a lot of discussion about when should daughters start dating. You know, should they date at 14? Should they date at 16? Or when should a daughter start dating? I'm very passionate about the fact that I believe daughters should start dating very, very young. You know, in fact, I think that daughters should go on hundreds of dates before they even meet their husband. I just happen to think that every single one of them needs to be with their dad. We need to date our daughters. Okay? Because as we date our daughters, we set a certain standard. I remember when my first daughter was born, you know, I was nervous because I grew up in a home of 3 boys. And I was nervous about raising a girl. You know, I'm thinking, you know, there's emotions and things like that. I remember one time, this is just when I had 2 daughters, I remember one time I'm sitting at the table, we're eating dinner, and all of them are crying. And I'm like, what's the problem? And none of them were able to tell me. They're just crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? And they're saying, we don't know, we're just crying. And I'm thinking, that's impossible. You can't not know why you cry. And I've been proven so many times that it is possible to cry without knowing why. I've seen it in all 4 of my daughters and my wife. And so basically, we need to be the standard. As I was raising them, or I lost my train, as I was basically getting ready for all these girls, and I started to read about them. Because, around the dinner table, I realized that I wasn't prepared to raise these girls. I wasn't prepared for the emotions and the different way of thinking. And so as I was reading, I remember I read this book, and honestly it scared me. Because what the author said is that you set the bar for who your daughter's going to marry. Your daughter won't marry somebody less than the example that you show them. That was kind of scary to me. Because I thought, wow. So they're looking to me to determine who their husband is going to be. So think about the way that you treat your daughter. Is that the way that you want their husband to treat them? Obviously we love our daughters, and we want them to have a marriage that's great, and we want them to be married to a man that's going to respect them, listen to them, be kind to them. Is that you? Because you are that bar. And that's why we need to start dating our daughters at a young age. When I take my daughters out, I pull the chair out for them. I open the door for them. I listen to them. Because that's what I want their husbands to do. I want them to expect to marry a man that's going to be there for them and to respect them, who's going to open doors for them, who's going to lay down his life for them. I heard something one time that made a lot of sense, and it was, we often just let our daughters go out on a date with just any little boy. And the question that I ask is, the boy that's going out with your daughter, when you let him take your car? And I thought that was an interesting question. Because a lot of times you're like, no, I'm not going to just let any old person take my car, but we're letting them take our daughter. You see? How much more careful are we with our car than we would be with our own daughter? And you can make the assumption, well, my daughter, she can make her own decisions. She can, do what she wants. Really? How many of our daughters are going to be able to fend off a boy that's overly aggressive? So my point being is, you need to set this standard so that girls are going to want, our daughters are going to want to bring home a man that we would say, sure, take out our car. Because we see a man that is trustworthy, a man that is true to who he is, and a man that's going to love and respect their daughters. Because my daughters, all of them, obviously are far more valuable than my car. And so I want them to bring home and expect these boys that they bring home to treat them well. So I need to treat my own daughters well. So we need to go on dates with our daughters. Another point that's closely related to this is how you treat your wife. Our daughters see how we are treating our wives. Are we listening to our wives, or are we just sitting there watching TV? Oh, but it's so close to the big point I was going to make. So they watch how we treat our wives. There's the golden rule that says, treat others the way that you want them to treat you. But the question that I ask is, or the point that I want to make is, we also need to treat our wives the way we want our son-in-laws to treat our daughters. Because again, if I'm telling them, you need to wait for a man that's going to respect you, but then I don't respect my wife, it doesn't add up. If I tell my daughters, you should get a guy that's going to listen to you, but I won't take the time to listen to my wife, again, it doesn't add up. Our daughters, again, they're not going to just watch how we treat them. They're going to watch how we treat our wives. And again, this is setting a stage and an example to them of who they are going to marry. And I want my daughters to have just sky-high expectations for their husband. I want them to think, I want the best man out there to be my husband, because marriage is huge. 50% of marriages these days are ending in divorce. I don't want my daughters to go through that. I don't want them to have a rough marriage. So I want their expectations up here. But that's dependent on you. Is the way that you are treating them up here or down here? So as we go home tonight, plan your next date. Figure out where you're going to go. It doesn't always have to be like, a huge date. There's times that I brought flowers home for my daughters, and we've gone out to eat and stuff like that. But I got 4. I can't afford that all the time. Go to the park. One time I took my daughter and we went and we bought a huge airplane, and we just went to a park and threw it. Another time I just took the daughter fishing. They don't have to be big, huge experiences, but they just have to be quality experiences. Quality because you listen to her, you treat her with respect, and you treat her with love. The way that you want her husband to want you to treat her. The second thing I want to talk about is guarding their hearts. I taught church history a while back. And as I was teaching church history, I of course went through, the Roman Empire, because Christianity came through that. And I was really surprised to learn about the Roman Empire, because obviously it was one of the most powerful empires ever to exist. It was a huge, vast empire. But what I learned is that when Rome was overthrown, nobody actually overthrew it. What happened is, at one point, an army came to the city of Rome to take it over, and what they found is no army there to battle with. They literally walked up to Rome, found nobody there, walked into the city, and it was theirs. Strange, isn't it? How could an empire that's so big and so powerful just one day be reduced to, here, just walk in and take it, with nobody to resist them? The reason is, Rome was very focused on keeping their military strong, but they lacked focus in keeping morality. The Roman Empire became incredibly immoral, and their immorality eventually led to basically financial disaster, so that there wasn't even money to finance an army. So the problem with Rome wasn't that they didn't have an army, is that they didn't guard themselves against small immorality at the beginning. And that eventually grew and led to their downfall.